Welcome back. I'm Chris Temple, and in today's update, we're going to revisit US Gold Corporation, one of the companies I've been covering for quite a while now. Indeed, some of you may remember that last summer I interviewed its CEO, George B. I've written about the company a few times since then in the National Investor and elsewhere. If you've not watched that video previously, which gives a lot of background on US Gold's projects, I would encourage you to do that. In just a minute, the company's chairman, Luke Norman, is going to join me, and Luke is going to give us the happy news, which came out this week, specifically Wednesday morning, the 8th of May, as we're recording this the following day. The news that came out was that the state of Wyoming has granted US Gold the mining permit for the CK Gold Project in Wyoming. It's called a Gold Project. The CK stands for Copper King, which it was called once upon a time when the view was that it was predominantly copper. It's roughly two-thirds gold and one-third copper, so it's relevant in both areas. We're going to give you a refresher on it and a couple other things with the company, but this was a major milestone that US Gold just reached, and I'm looking forward to getting the skinny on that from Luke and going into a couple of other subjects. Before I do, of course, the obligatory uh, notice here on the screen that Luke Norman, the chairman, and or myself may be making forward-looking statements, so realize that. Also a reminder that though U.S. Gold was long ago added to my recommendations at National Investor Publishing on the merits of the company, people do not pay me to be recommended. Notwithstanding that, after the fact, U.S. Gold does pay us to do some copywriting and media work and research and whatnot, of which this video update is once again a part. Now, U.S. Gold is listed on the NASDAQ under the symbol USAU, as you see here. They're fairly active on their social media pages, also listed here with their website. So I'd encourage you, apart from watching this update or even going back and watching the profile that we did on US Gold back last summer with George, do your homework. Go to the website, kick the tires, as I'm going to go through again with Luke somewhat today. This is a great, solid story of a made in the USA looming copper and gold producer. Now the move will be accelerating toward development, and we'll be finding that all out from Luke. And I am joined by the chairman of US Gold Corp, Luke Norman. Luke, glad you could join me. Good to see you again.
Great to see you too, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Well, you know, I before you came on, I hearkened back to the several months ago, the overview we gave of U.S. Gold with George B. And I think it's a good reminder to folks that George had retired after a very successful career in the mining industry. You guys talked him out of retirement because he thought that the CK Gold project, actually Copper Gold project, had a lot of promise. So you brought him in to help steer the ship. What take us back a little bit to the genesis of CK and the nature of the ore body, and then we're going to get into more of the permitting and where we're going to go from here.
Certainly. Yeah, the genesis of this project, purely and simply, it was in a battery metals company, and they were looking to divest of it so they could spend the money elsewhere on their other assets in their portfolio. So in 2015, I got into a discussion with them along with my co-founding partners, and we purchased Copper King, as it was known back then, to basically bolster the startup, which became US Gold Corp. And of course, the focus for US Gold Corp initially was Nevada-based exploration, pure Nevada-based exploration, and that was based off of the success I had had previously with Gold Standard Ventures, where I co-founded that, and it was a wonderful success.
Yeah. Now, to date, and the last report that was done on this was at the end of 2021. You guys, through drilling and whatnot, have built up the CK project to where you've got almost 250 million pounds of copper, a little over 1 million ounces of gold, and those are both in the proven and probable categories. It's important to point out there's other resources beyond that. So based on that study, you've got a net present value at the numbers you used in 2021, which we have them on a screen here, pretty low ball conservative numbers. it's $300+ million in the most conservative scenario, and you guys sitting here with a market cap of around 40 million or so.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer, folks, from an investment standpoint to look at the value here. But you're going to be updating that feasibility study later on this year, aren't you? And is it going to be to, I'm sure to update the numbers and get them a little bit closer to the recent spot prices for both copper and gold. Are you looking at upgrading the resource as well, or doing infill stuff? And what exactly are we going to be looking for?
Okay, so yeah, those numbers 2021 obviously sensitive to inflation, which we've all
Yeah.
recognized, well outside of what we're being told by the federal governments. I think that inflation is rampant right now. So the capex number that you see there, $222 million, we expect that number to increase up into the $260 million range. But again, in the sensitivities, we used $1,625 gold, $3.25 copper per pound. Clearly, the metals prices have moved dramatically more than that percentage case against our capex. So the all-in sustaining cost will creep upwards as well. But in these figures, you can see that our AISC, or all-in sustaining cost, is around $800, so about half of the value of the price of gold. We think that margin will be probably more like 40%. So yeah, the metals prices have made this project more robust.
Oh, even much more so. And besides the numbers, folks, which I'm quite confident, and I know management are going to look even better, notwithstanding the likelihood that the initial capex will go up because of inflation and materials and whatnot. You've also still got a fair whack of exploration upside at CK, don't you?
Oh, we certainly do, and that's a prime thing that people need to recognize and understand about this pre-feasibility and this reserve. What we recognized very early on was there was a real understanding or belief, sorry, amongst the investment community that we would not be able to permit this project. The reason being is we were located very close to a state park in Wyoming. We knew it wasn't going to be a major issue. We'd had a lot of discussion within the state with numerous authorities, and they didn't feel that that was going to bode an issue simply because of the simplistic style of mining. There is another operating quarry only 2 miles away from us, which is owned by Martin Marietta. So we were confident that we could permit this, but we needed to be able to prove that to the marketplace. So by, I would say, encapsulating that reserve and not continuing to chase mineralization, because mineralization that we really weren't getting rewarded for anyway, because revert back again, chicken and egg or horse and cart. We needed to be able to prove to the market that there was a financial reason to go after this deposit, but ultimately that we could permit this. So we shut it off at that 1.5 million ounce gold equivalence reserve. But yeah, the mineralization continues to depth, and we're pretty sure it continues laterally as well. So internally, when we look at this project, we look at it as being potentially twice as what's represented there.
Yeah, because you're open in pretty much every direction, and that was a great strategy, Luke. Obviously, in the kind of a market that we've had in the recent past, where it's been kind of there's a dearth of interest in a lot of the exploration and even smaller producing metals companies, but that started to change. You certainly got the market's attention yesterday when you put out the news on Wednesday, the 8th, of getting the mining permit from the state of Wyoming. The share price jumped better than 10% on the day. So unlike a lot of your peers, you're a whole lot closer to your 52-week high in
Mm-hmm.
an environment where a lot of the metal stocks still have not kept up with the rallies in the metals. That's something that'll be changing as time goes on. In fact, I'll be putting out a special printed report on the precious metals market imminently. It's one of a series of reports coming out. If you're not on my mailing list already, folks, make sure you get on it. And I'll be talking about that particular dynamic. So going forward now, you've got, well, last year was in June, right, that you got the industrial use permit.
Yep, industrial sightings permit.
Right,
That's right.
industrial sightings
Well,
permit. And yeah,
yeah,
now the mining permit.
yeah. I mean, look, I'll go even a little deeper into this.
Sure.
Think back, we're just talking August of 2020 is when we decided as a company, as a board, to pivot from exploration and focus our efforts into the development of CK. And you quite artfully said that I had brought George out of retirement and to be CEO of this company, where, in matter of fact, he brought himself out of retirement. I had asked him to take a deep dive on this project, and so he brought in some of his ex-Barrick workmates, and they
Right.
ran a full scoping study, independent, but on behalf of the company. I wanted to understand what the economic potential was here. Should I continue to explore in Nevada, or should we pursue our opportunity, our copper gold project in Wyoming? So George came back and said we'd be crazy to sell it. His words, not mine. This is a cash cow, and he'd love to be involved in it. So by August of 2020, he was brought in as our CEO. And you think about these timelines now, Chris. I mean,
Yeah.
they are remarkable. And that's, I think, the verbiage I used in the press release yesterday, that from August of 2020, we've managed to take this thing from a PEA with about 1 million ounce gold equivalence resource to a 1.5 million ounce reserve and have it permitted by May of 2024. Like, this just does not happen anywhere else. And the reason it doesn't happen anywhere else, sorry, in North America, I should caveat,
Yeah.
is because here we didn't have to deal with the federal agencies, as you're aware.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Thankfully, it's all the state of Wyoming, and as you said, you've got a big project with Martin Marietta not far away, and so it's not like this is a brand new thing in the area that you're at. So, Luke, going forward, you've got, as you announced yesterday, a couple of, in the grand scheme of things, relatively minor permits on was it water use and environmental permit or something like
Water use and air qualities
air
permit.
quality. Okay.
Yeah.
And those things are you're expecting to have those in fairly short order. So, the question then is going to come around to the actual development. What should we be looking for as far as attempts to get project financing? As you said, the next economic study will likely show maybe a 260 million plus or minus capex for Copper King.
Mhm.
Where are you looking to try and get that, or is it going to be a combination of things?
A combination of things. Look, as I mentioned, when we cut off that reserve at about 1.5 million ounces to trigger the permit process, there was also a bit of a, I want to say, greedy approach by us. That being, is we're shareholders of this company. Our prime motivation is to garner the most value on a per share basis as we can from this company, so it reflects over to all of us as investors. So, we spent almost $30 million to this point. That dilution has come and gone. A new investor that invests in US Gold Corp today is not exposed to that dilution now, only through our share count. We don't have any really large commitments. So what we want to do now is take the time to get the story out there and have people understand this value opportunity. And I'll use some of the metrics that are used within the mining sector by the analysts. We'll take that NPV5 again that you've highlighted. $323 million NPV5. Again, I'll remind everyone that was based on $1,625 gold, $3.25 copper. So that number is expected to be significantly higher. But when you take that number, traditionally as a reserve, the company would be rewarded with about a 0.4 to 0.6 of that value in market capitalization. So, somewhere between $120 million and $180 million for round numbers would be our market capitalization. Right now, with a reserve and permits, we're trading at 0.15 of that NPV5 number. So we see a massive difference between our current market capitalization and where we should be valued in a normalized market. And truth be said, with permits, one might expect to trade upwards of 0.6 to 0.8 of that NPV5 number.
For sure, with
So
your permitted.
yeah. So we're in no rush to race out the gates. It wasn't a starter's pistol that went off yesterday that said, we've got our permits in hand, now we have to go build it.
Yeah.
We are exploring all sorts of different opportunities in terms of how to raise the capital for this project. Anywhere from, obviously, the offtake providers who want our source material. They're very common financiers in the mining space. the equipment manufacturers. Is when you pull up to Ford or Chev dealership and you want to buy that $60,000 truck, they offer you finance to purchase. And that's the same with our equipment providers. And then ultimately, the state of Wyoming has precedents where they've on record put up to 50% of capex on project towards capex, sorry, on projects in state through municipal bonds and other things. And then there's a whole new component I could get into, Chris. And I said I didn't want to get too far into the weeds with you today because I have a propensity to want to ramble because I am a little
All
bit
right.
close to this project. But I will touch on one other thing: is
Sure.
it's probably the cleanest, greenest mine you'll find in North America once it's up and rolling in production. And something that's not factored into the economics that we're looking at right now is our waste rock. We have 35 million tons of extra waste rock that we don't use within our tailings and buttressing, etc., which is a highly valuable commodity as an aggregate source in the area. So somewhere in the range of $600 or $700 million worth of free money sitting on surface through this production scenario. So I also want to work towards bringing that into the economics of the project. So we're not going to race out the gate. I think my message is we're not going to race out the gates and rush off and try and raise all this capital and issue a whole bunch of equity to build out a mine where I think the story is just starting to get understood.
Great answer, and I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad you brought up the aggregates too, because I've discussed that with George in the past, that that's another potentially substantial cash source for CK that's not even contemplated by anybody, certainly not by the market, which has
No,
you discounted just based on the gold and copper. Forget about that. So I think that's a great move. You know, before we go, you alluded to the fact that US Gold Corp started as more of an exploration company and Nevada focus. And I want to remind folks that even though you don't have any near-term plans for much the same reason, you don't want to raise money in a market and dilute the stock. And that's one of the advantages of this, folks, is that you don't have a big market cap here. You don't have a big share count, unlike so many companies out there. But you still have waiting in the wings a project that it was my introduction years back
mm-hmm.
through Ed Carr to US Gold, and that is the Keystone.
Keystone Project, correct.
Yeah. Give us a quick Cliff Notes version of that. And again, even though you're not going to be raising a lot of money or spending money on that near term, it's something that's hugely prospective and one of the best zip codes you could possibly be in.
Yeah, Chris, look, again, it's the reason why we started this company. And if you can look back to Gold Standard Ventures, my previous company that I co-founded alongside with Jonathan Ord,
Yep.
we took that from a $18 million market cap to upwards of close to $1 billion market cap through discovery on a project that's eerily similar to Keystone. And the reason I say eerily similar is this. Keystone is a standalone domal district that's taken upwards of 30 years to consolidate. These big districts are very, very hard to come by in Nevada because of multitude of reasons, but mostly underlying owners of different, projects and properties that intertwine. So it's a big undertaking. So we put this together with the plan to go and make the big discovery at Keystone. Keystone is 10 miles away from the Cortez complex, which is Barrick's flagship project now, well, group of projects now. Keep in mind that was bought from Placer Dome. Placer Dome were taken out on the discovery of the Cortez Hills find. Cortez Hills added about $7 or $8 billion in value to Placer Dome. So we're in elephant country, truly. And the backdrop, the geology there, the stratigraphy, everything we see there says that this could be another Cortez type opportunity. So it's the big lottery ticket in amongst our very conservative Copper King approach.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, folks, looking down the road, and this is going to be a while before this lottery ticket, if we know if it's going to pay off or not. Of course, the hope is that it will. But hey, I got to tell you, when you look at what is known now, the economics of the CK Gold Copper project, how cheap US Gold shares are compared to what a very low ball number is, the upside there, the safe jurisdiction that it's in. This is something that really needs to be a core part of your portfolio because it's been largely de-risked now with pretty much all the permits in hand. So take a look at it. Again, here on the screen is all the contact information for US Gold. Go to their website, do your homework, follow them on social media, and of course, follow yours truly as well. We're going to have updates from time to time on US Gold as well. But Luke, congratulations to all of you for getting that mining permit now. And I'm glad you explained it the way you did as far as how you're looking now going forward, because you've still got updated, probably even more attractive economic study coming out in the second half of the year. You may or may not be able to get the aggregates part of that as part of this study, but if not now, perhaps later. This is a hell of an asset that the market has just not recognized yet. And folks, don't wait for everybody else to recognize it. Make sure you take your positions now. So
Yeah,
Luke, thanks much. And I look forward to the next time our paths cross in person.
likewise, Chris. And yeah, I think the market's not too far away from waking up to us. I certainly think from an M&A perspective, we've got to have a big target on our heads right now. So we need to protect that. I need to get the stock higher, and that's what we're working on.
Well, you certainly do now that you're permitted, and on top of that, having a great asset that's only going to get become a better looking one. So thanks again, Luke.
No, thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
For much more of the National Investor's cutting-edge content and actionable investment opportunities, make sure to subscribe to Chris's free content at nationalinvestor.com. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.